It's enough. Yeah, it's good. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. صلى على محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إني أدعوك كما أمرتني فاستجب لي كما وعدتني إنك لا تخلف الميعاد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إني أسألك برحمتك التي وسعت كل شيء وبقوتك التي قهرت بها كل شيء وخضع لها كل شيء وذل لها كل شيء وبجبروتك التي غلبت بها كل شيء وبعزتك التي لا يقوم لها شيء وبعظمتك التي ملأت كل شيء وبسلطانك الذي على كل شيء وبوجهك الباقي بعد فناء كل شيء وبأسمائك التي ملأت أركان كل شيء وبعلمك الذي أحاط بكل شيء وبنور وجهك الذي أضاء له كل شيء. يا نور يا قدوس يا أول الأولين ويا آخر الآخرين. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تهتك العصام. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل النقم. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تغير النعم. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحبس الدعاء. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل البلاء. اللهم اغفر لي كل ذنب أذنبته وكل خطيئة أخطأتها. اللهم إني أتقرب إليك بذكرك وأستشفع بك إلى نفسك وأسألك بجودك أن تدنيني من قربك وأن توزعني شكرك وأن تلهمني ذكرك. اللهم إني أسألك سؤال خاضع متذلل خاشع أن تسامحني وترحمني وتجعلني بقسمك راضيا قانعا وفي جميع الأحوال متواضعا. اللهم وأسألك سؤال من اشتدت فاقته وأنزل بك عند الشدائد حاجته وعظم فيما عندك رغبته. اللهم عظم سلطانك وعلى مكانك وخفي مكرك وظهر أمرك وغلب قهرك وجرت قدرتك ولا يمكن الفرار من حكومتك. اللهم لا أجد لذنوبي غافرا ولا لقبائحي ساترا ولا لشيء من عمل القبيح بالحسن مبدلا غيرك. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك وبحمدك ظلمت نفسي وتجرأت بجهلي، وسكنت إلى قديم ذكرك لي ومنك علي. اللهم مولاي، كم من قبيح سترت، وكم من فادح من البلاء أقلت، وكم من عثار وقيت، وكم من مكروه دفعت، وكم من ثناء جميل لست أهلا له نشرت. اللهم عظم بلائي، وأفرط بي سوء حالي، وقصرت بي أعمالي، وقعدت بي أغلالي، وحبسني عن نفعي بعد آمالي، وخدعتني الدنيا بغرورها، ونفسي بخيانتها، ومطالي يا سيدي، فأسألك بعزتك ألا يحجب عنك دعائي سوء عملي وفعالي، ولا تفضحني بخفي ما اطلعت عليه من سري، ولا تعاجلني بالعقوبة على ما عملته في خلواتي من سوء فعلي وإساءتي، ودوام تفريطي وجهالتي، وكثرة شهواتي وغفلتي. وكن اللهم بعزتك لي في كل الأحوال رؤوفا، وعلي في جميع الأمور عطوفا. إلهي وربي، من لي غيرك؟ أسأله كشف ضري والنظر في أمري. إلهي ومولاي، أجريت علي حكما اتبعت فيه هوى نفسي، ولم أحترس فيه من تزيين عدوه، فغرني بما أهواه، وأسعده على ذلك القضاء، فتجاوزت بما جرى علي من ذلك بعض حدودك، وخالفت بعض أوامرك، فلك الحجة علي في جميع ذلك، ولا حجة لي فيما جرى علي فيه قضاؤك، وألزمني حكمك وبلاؤك. وقد أتيتك يا إلهي بعد تقصيري وإسرافي على نفسي، معتذرا نادما منكسرا مستقيلا، مستغفرا منيبا، مقرا مذعنا معترفا، لا أجد مفرا مما كان مني، ولا مفزعا أتوجه إليه في أمري غير قبولك عذري، وإدخالك إياي في سعة من رحمتك. اللهم فاقبل عذري، وارحم شدة ضري، وفكني من شد وثاقي. يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني، ورقة جلدي، ودقة عظمي، يا من بدأ خلقي وذكري وتربيتي وبري وتغذيتي. هبني لابتداء كرمك وسالف برك بي، يا إلهي وسيدي وربي. أتراك معذبي بنارك بعد توحيدك، وبعد من طوى عليه قلبي من معرفتك، ولهج به لساني من ذكرك، واعتقده ضميري من حبك. وبعد صدق اعترافي ودعائي خاضعا لربوبيتك، هيهات أنت أكرم من أن تضيع من ربيت، أو تبعد من أدنيت، أو تشرد من آويت، أو تسلم إلى البلاء من كفيته ورحمته. وليت شعري يا سيدي وإلهي ومولاي، أتسلط النار على وجوه خرت لعظمتك ساجدة، وعلى ألسن نطقت بتوحيدك صادقة، وبشكرك مادحة، وعلى قلوب اعترفت بإلهيتك محققة، وعلى ضمائر حوت من العلم بك حتى صارت خاشعة، وعلى جوارح سعت إلى أوطان تعبدك طائعة، وأشارت باستغفارك مذعنة. ما هكذا الظن بك، ولا أخبرنا بفضلك عنك يا كريم. يا ربي وأنت تعلم ضعفي عن قليل من بلاء الدنيا وعقوباتها، وما يجري فيها من المكاره على أهلها، على أن ذلك بلاء ومكروه، قليل مكثور، يسير بقاؤه، قصير مدته. فكيف احتمالي لبلاء الآخرة وجليل وقوع المكاره فيها، وهو بلاء تطول مدته ويدوم مقامه، ولا يخفف عن أهله، لأنه لا يكون إلا عن غضبك وانتقامك وسخطك. وهذا ما لا تقوم له السماوات والأرض. يا سيدي فكيف بي وأنا عبدك الضعيف الذليل الحقير المسكين المستكين، يا إلهي وربي وسيدي ومولاي. لأي الأمور إليك أشكوه، ولما منها أضج وأبكي، لأليم العذاب وشدته، أم لطول البلاء ومدته؟ فلئن صيرتني للعقوبات مع أعدائك، وجمعت بيني وبين أهل بلائك، وفرقت بيني وبين أحبائك وأوليائك، فهبني يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي وربي، صبرت على عذابك، فكيف أصبر على فراقك؟ وهبني صبرت على حر نارك، فكيف أصبر عن النظر إلى كرامتك؟ أم كيف أسكن في النار ورجائي عفوه؟ فبعزتك يا سيدي ومولاي أقسم صادقا، لأن تركتني ناطقا لأضجن إليك بين أهلها ضجيج الآملين، ولأصرخن إليك صراخ المستصرخين، ولأبكين عليك بكاء الفاقدين، ولأنادينك أين كنت يا ولي المؤمنين، يا غاية آمال العارفين، يا غياث المستغيثين، يا حبيب قلوب الصادقين، ويا إله العالمين. أفتراك سبحانك يا إلهي وبحمدك تسمع فيها صوت عبد مسلم سجن فيها بمخالفته، وذاق طعم عذابها بمعصيته، وحبس بين أطباقها بجرمه وجريرته، وهو يضج إليك ضجيج مؤمل لرحمتك، ويناديك بلسان أهل توحيدك، ويتوسل إليك بربوبيته. يا مولاي، فكيف يبقى في العذاب وهو يرجو ما سلف من حلمك؟ أم كيف تؤلمه النار وهو يأمل فضلك ورحمتك؟ أم كيف يحرقه لهيبها وأنت تسمع صوته وترى مكانه؟ أم كيف يشتمل عليه زفيرها وأنت تعلم ضعفا؟ أم كيف يتقلقل بين أطباقها وأنت تعلم صدقا؟ أم كيف تزجره زبانيتها وهو يناديك يا رباه؟ أم كيف يرجو فضلك في عتقه منها فتتركه فيها؟ ما هكذا الظن بك ولا المعروف من فضلك، ولا مشبه لما عاملت به الموحدين من برك وإحسانك. فباليقين أقطع لولا ما حكمت به من تعذيب جاحديك وقضيت به من إخلاد معانديك لجعلت النار كلها بردا وسلاما، وما كانت لأحد فيها مقرا ولا مقاما. لكنك تقدست أسماؤك أقسمت أن تملأها من الكافرين من الجنة والناس أجمعين، وأن تخلد فيها المعاندين، وأن تجل ثناؤك قلت مبتدئا وتطولت بالإنعام متكرما. أفمن كان مؤمنا كمن كان فاسقا لا يستوون. إلهي وسيدي، فأسألك بالقدرة التي قدرتها وبالقضية التي حتمتها وحكمتها وغلبة من عليه أجريتها، أن تهب لي في هذه الليلة وفي هذه الساعة كل جرم أجرمته وكل ذنب أذنبته وكل قبيح أسررته وكل جهل عملته، كتمته أو أعلنته، أخفيته أو أظهرته، وكل سيئة أمرت بإثباتها الكرام الكاتبين الذين وكلتهم بحفظ ما يكون مني وجعلتهم شهودا علي مع جوارحه، وكنت أنت الرقيب علي من ورائهم والشاهد لما خفي عنهم، وبرحمتك أخفيت وبفضلك سترت، وأن توفر حظي من كل خير تنزل أو إحسان تفضله أو بر تنشره أو رزق تبسطه أو ذنب تغفره أو خطأ تستره. يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب. يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي ومالك رقي، يا من بيده ناصيتي، يا عليما بضري ومسكنتي، يا خبيرا بفقري وفاقتي. يا ربي يا ربي أسألك بحقك وقدسك وأعظم صفاتك وأسمائك أن تجعل أوقاتي من الليل والنهار بذكرك معمورا وبخدمتك موصولا وأعمالي عندك مقبولا حتى تكون أعمالي وأورادي كلها وردا واحدا وحالي في خدمتك سرمدا يا سيدي يا من عليه معولي يا من إليه شكوت أحوالي يا ربي يا ربي يا قو على خدمتك جوارحي واشدد على العزيمة جوانحي وهب لي الجد في خشيتك والدوام في الاتصال بخدمتك حتى أسرح إليك في ميادين السابقين وأسرع إليك في المبادرين وأشتاق إلى قربك في المشتاقين وأدنو منك دنو المخلصين وأخافك مخافة الموقنين وأجتمع في جوارك مع المؤمنين اللهم ومن أرادنا بسوء فأرد ومن كادنا فكد واجعلنا من أحسن عبيدك نصيبا عندك وأقربهم منزلة منك وأخصهم زلفة لديك فإنه لا ينال ذلك إلا بفضلك وجد لي بجودك وعطف علي بمجدك واحفظني برحمتك واجعل لساني بذكرك لهجا وقلبي بحبك متيما ومن علي بحسن إجابتك وأقلني عثرتي واغفر زلتي فإنك قضيت على عبادك بعبادتك وأمرتهم بدعائك وضمنت لهم الإجابة فإليك يا ربي نصبت وجهي وإليك يا ربي مددت يدي فبعزتك استجب لي دعائي وبلغني مناي ولا تقطع من فضلك رجائي واكفني شر الجن والإنس من أعدائي يا سريع الرضا اغفر لمن لا يملك إلا الدعاء فإنك فعال لما تشاء يا من اسمه دواء وذكره شفاء وطاعته غنى ارحم من رأس ماله الرجاء وسلاحه البكاء يا سابغ النعم يا دافع النقم يا نور المستوحشين في الظلم يا عالما لا يعلم صل على محمد وآل محمد وافعل بي ما أنت أهله وصلى الله على رسوله والأئمة الميامين من آله وسلم تسليما كثيرا الفاتحة.
زيارة عاشوراء. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله، السلام عليك يا خيرة الله وابن خيرته، السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين وابن سيد الوصيين، السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة سيدتي نساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا ثار الله وابن ثاره والوتر الموتور، السلام عليك وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك، عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار. يا أبا عبد الله، لقد عظمت الرزية وجلت وعظمت المصيبة بك علينا وعلى جميع أهل الإسلام، وجلت وعظمت مصيبتك في السماوات على جميع أهل السماوات. فلعن الله أمة أسست أساس الظلم والجور عليكم أهل البيت، ولعن الله أمة دفعتكم عن مقامكم وأزالتكم عن مراتبكم التي رتبكم الله فيها، ولعن الله أمة قتلتكم، ولعن الله الممهدين لهم بالتمكين من قتالكم. برئت إلى الله وإليكم منهم ومن أشياعهم وأتباعهم وأوليائهم. يا أبا عبد الله، إني سلم لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم إلى يوم القيامة. ولعن الله آل زياد وآل مروان، ولعن الله بني أمية قاتبا، ولعن الله ابن مرجانا، ولعن الله عمر بن سعد، ولعن الله شمر، ولعن الله أمة أسرجت وألجمت وتنقبت لقتالك. بأبي أنت وأمي، لقد عظم مصابي بك، فأسأل الله الذي أكرم مقامك وأكرمني بك أن يرزقني طلب ثاره مع إمام منصور من أهل بيت محمد صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم اجعلني عندك وجيها بالحسين عليه السلام في الدنيا والآخرة. يا أبا عبد الله، إني أتقرب إلى الله وإلى رسوله وإلى أمير المؤمنين وإلى فاطمة وإلى الحسن وإليك بموالاتك وبالبراءة من قتلك ونصب لك الحرب، وبالبراءة من أسس أساس الظلم والجور عليكم. وأبرأ إلى الله وإلى رسوله ممن أسس أساس ذلك وبنى عليه بنيانا وجرى في ظلمه وجوره عليكم وعلى أشياعكم. برئت إلى الله وإليكم منهم، وأتقرب إلى الله ثم إليكم بموالاتكم وموالاة وليكم وبالبراءة من أعدائكم والناصبين لكم الحرب، وبالبراءة من أشياعهم وأتباعهم. إني سلم لمن سالمكم، وحرب لمن حاربكم، وولي لمن والاكم، وعدو لمن عاداكم. فأسأل الله الذي أكرمني بمعرفتكم ومعرفة أوليائكم ورزقني البراءة من أعدائكم أن يجعلني معكم في الدنيا والآخرة، وأن يثبت لي عندكم قدم صدق في الدنيا والآخرة. وأسأله أن يبلغني المقام المحمود لكم عند الله، وأن يرزقني طلب ثاري مع إمام هدى ظاهر ناطق بالحق منكم. وأسأل الله بحقكم وبالشأن الذي لكم عنده أن يعطيني بمصابي بكم أفضل ما يعطي مصابا بمصيبتي، مصيبة ما أعظمها وأعظم رزيتها في الإسلام وفي جميع السماوات والأرض. اللهم اجعلني في مقام هذا ممن تناله منك صلوات ورحمة ومغفرة. اللهم اجعل محياي محيا محمد وآل محمد، ومماتي ممات محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إن هذا يوم تبركت به بنو أمية وابن آكلة الأكباد، اللعين ابن اللعين، على لسانك ولسان نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله في كل موطن وموقف وقف فيه نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم العن أبا سفيان ومعاوية ويزيد بن معاوية، عليهم منك اللعنة أبد الآبدين. وهذا يوم فرحت به آل زياد وآل مروان بقتلهم الحسين صلوات الله عليه. اللهم فضاعف عليهم اللعن من والعذاب الأليم. اللهم إني أتقرب إليك في هذا اليوم وفي موقفي هذا وأيام حياتي بالبراءة منهم واللعنة عليهم، وبالموالاة لنبيك وآل نبيك عليه وعليهم السلام. اللهم العن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد، وآخر تابع له على ذلك. اللهم العن العصابة التي جاهدت الحسين وشايعت وبايعت وتباعت على قتله. اللهم العنهم جميعا. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم جميعا. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى اللهم خص أنت أول ظالم باللعن مني، وابدأ به أولا ثم العن الثاني والثالث والرابع. اللهم العن يزيد خامسا، والعن عبيد الله بن زياد وابن مرجانا وعمر بن سعد وشمر وآل أبا سفيان وآل زياد وآل مروان إلى يوم القيامة. سجود. اللهم لك الحمد حمد الشاكرين لك على مصابهم. الحمد لله على عظيم رزيته. اللهم ارزقني شفاعة الحسين يوم الورود، وثبت لي قدم صدق عندك مع الحسين وأصحاب الحسين الذين بذلوا مهجهم دون الحسين عليه السلام. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد. For the souls of the marhumin, of all those who are present here today, please recite Surah Al-Fatiha. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Thank you all for joining us today, our regular Thursday program. Please spread the message to all your friends and family that we do have a program every Thursday night, alhamdulillah. We'd love to see more and more people in attendance, so please spread the word that we do have the program, and it begins with Salat al-Jama'ah. And without further ado, please let us help me in welcoming our speaker, Sayyid Abbas Razavian, with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Are you doing YouTube? Are you doing the YouTube? Can you put the title, changing the way we view our supplication? Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Ask. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى قيام يوم الدين. Before we begin, we'll give an Islamic ruling, and this is an easy way for us to learn our ahkam and Islamic law. Because a lot of times when I have class or when you have courses on Islamic law, sometimes it's overwhelming. So one issue that many people ask is about investment. And that is, can someone invest in stock markets? Now, I'm not specifically answering for, say, the New York Stock Exchange or whatever. In general, we have stock markets are not only limited to this country. There's stock markets everywhere. And is there ownership when you invest in stocks? So even though when we, to clear this, first of all, there is a akhlaqi, ethical way of living, and there's a fiqhi and Islamic way of living. The answer I'm going to give you is not based off akhlaq or ethics, it's based off fiqh. And in fiqh, the main concern is a person going to deserve punishment or not? That is what, is that valid? Is that transaction valid or not valid? And if it is a taklif, is this obligation going to cause me to deserve hellfire or not? So it is the bare minimum. You don't have to invest. You can do something else with your money. You can give it to charity. You can do whatever you want. But we're answering this question because people want to know what is the ruling on investing in the stock market. So even though there is risk involved, the risk itself does not make it haram or a sin. Some people ask, they say, because there's risk, it is like gambling, for example. Because I'm putting my money, especially if you're a day trader, each, as you know, stocks, especially growth stocks, they go up and down all the time. So being in a risky investment does not make it haram. Now, do you want to do that? That is up to you. That's your money. You're going to lose your own money, your investment. That's up to you. But you won't deserve punishment from what the fuqaha say. So the first thing is, it's not like gambling. Actually, even in daytime trading, there is technical analysis. There's ways that you use moving averages. There's ways that you can estimate. And if you want to think about risk, actually having your own business is actually very risky. That doesn't necessarily make it haram, for example. They say that one of the facts is that somebody that has their own business, about 80% of them in the first 5 years go out of business. 80%. So that doesn't make it haram. So this first part, and I want you to think about it, and after the speech, we're going to have questions and answers. The first part is, yes, risky or non-risk, risk or not risk, it does not make it haram or halal. There are other criterion for investment that we have to learn before we invest. And inshallah, once we learn the halal and how to invest, inshallah, you make a lot of money in your investments, inshallah. Give a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajal farj. I thank all of you for coming tonight. It is very important for us to come in Thursday night, the nights of Muharram, the nights of Safar. These are very important nights for us. And as you know, Yasin has always had the tradition of keeping these Thursday night programs going. And it is the best of nights, the nights of forgiveness, when Prophet Yaqub was asked by his sons in the Quran, Ya Abana, istaghfir lana, O Father, seek forgiveness for us. The tradition says that he waited until Thursday night to seek forgiveness for his kids, because forgiveness It's much easier during these nights. So take advantage of these nights, take advantage of the nights of Muharram and Safar. And also this week we had, according to some traditions, the martyrdom of Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam. So tonight we're going to be talking about his life and talking about this issue. That is, Imam Zainul Abidin, because of the circumstances that he spread the message of Islam, true Islam, through dua, through supplication. Not that he was in a way that he liked supplication and he didn't like politics or he didn't want to get involved. That was his personality. No. This was his duty. His duty was preservation of the Islam of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. And people at that time, maybe a handful, were the numbers of people that remained after Ashura, after the event of Harra, where the Umayyads attacked the city of Medina, making the blood of the men halal and women halal for themselves. So there's a big, grave sin that the Umayyads did after Karbala, which was the attack of the city of the Holy Prophet of Islam and the event of Harra. So the time of Imam Zain al-Abidin, about these 34 years of Imamat, was a time period where the Imam was trying to preserve and to allow and to teach people through dua. He would purchase slaves, and purchasing these slaves, he would train them and educate them. Like, for example, we have Maysam Tammar, for example, was a slave before and had knowledge of the Quran afterwards, after Imam Ali alayhi salam taught him. So the slaves of Imam Zain al-Abidin, in the same way, great scholars, some of them became. And him himself, when you look at his holy life, it is actually many times, because we are followers of Ahlul Bayt, you don't realize how important Imam Zain al-Abidin is in history, according to the Sunnis. I'm going to give you a few quotations, the importance of him in history. And it is for us important to know this, that in history, for example, Al-Shafi'i, one of the 4 schools of jurisprudence, Anna Ali ibn Hussein afqa ahl al-Madina, that Imam Zain al-Abidin was the most knowledgeable person in Medina. This is where do we need to have these facts in history? No, we don't. We don't have to have it. We already have our proof from the Prophet of Islam, through Quran, through Hadith, through logic, that they were the best of creations, they were qualified. But for us to explain this to others, especially when talking about intra-faith, and you want to elaborate on the lives of each imams, it's important. You can't just bring in, for example, for our Sunni brothers, just narrations from Al-Kafi, because still they don't know what that book is. You have to supplement this with history. When Al-Shafi'i, from the 4 main schools of jurisprudence, says he is the most knowledgeable of Medina, then you ask yourselves, then why don't they recognize him as one of the fuqaha? How come they don't recognize him like Malik, like Abu Hanif? When you have Dhahabi, for example, saying كانت له جلالة عجيبة, he had amazing loveliness. Dhahabi is another historian, and mentioning Wallah ذلك, he was like this, فقد كان أهلا لإمامة العظمى, he deserved a grand imamat. He deserved a grand imamat. Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam. We should be proud. A lot of times we hear of Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq, for example, the teachers but we don't mention Imam Zain al-Abidin being the teachers and leaders of the Tabi'een, according to the Sunnis. لشرفه سؤدده وعلمه وتألهه وكمال عقله, all signs of perfection in history written about Imam Zayn al-Abidin. His worship is mentioned, his kamal aql, his intellect being perfect, and we see from his nobility. One of the narrators we have in Sahih Bukhari, there's about 9,000 narrations. About 1,000 of these 9,000, 1 out of 9 about, come from one person by the name of Ibn Shahab al-Zuhri. Ibn Shahab al-Zuhri is 1 out of 9. That's a lot. From one narrator to come. And he was a student of Imam Sajjad. Actually, when he was inquired about Imam Zayn al-Abidin, he would mention Zayn al-Abidin, the adornment of the worshippers. He would say this. And he says this statement, مَا رَأَيْتُ أَحَدًا أَفْقَهَ مِنْ. I have not seen someone that is more knowledgeable than him. Imagine the person that first started Sirah, biography of the Holy Prophet of Islam, a narrator that 1 out of 9 basic traditions in Sahih Bukhari is from him. But he himself mentions Imam Zayn al-Abidin as the most knowledgeable. I said this story many times, and you probably heard it from many times, but I'd like to say it again. Sometimes we don't understand the value of our imams. So you have to understand them throughout history. Let's recite Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajma'in. When I was with our Salafi cousins, you can say, in Saudi Arabia, in Hajj, they brought different teachers to try to convince me to join them or become part of them. And from these things that they asked he said that this 2 scholars of aqa'id, of beliefs, that they said, we have your books, Shia books, we read your books, we have it, we teach it. Said that our scholars, if they're not equal to your imams, they're not lower. It's a big statement to say that scholars from Ahlul Sunnah are equal to our imams or higher to our imams. So, of course, at that time, I wouldn't answer it in a way that I would be led up into the prisons of Baqi or something. I didn't want to get myself into trouble. I still wanted to complete my Hajj, inshallah. So in the way I would say it is that, the Shia said this, even though I had a bunch of, flashcards in here already, I had to memorize and stuff, I said that, you have Ibn Shahab Zuhri, I gave this example, and Imam Zayn al-Abidin, and he says what a great narrator you have in history. And he says himself that he is afqahu. I have not seen ma ra'aytu ahadan afqahu min. I have not seen someone more knowledgeable than him. You have statements like this. And he was quiet, exactly quiet. And that's what many times, if you have knowledge and you look at history and look at the lives of the imams, there's ways to answer and to make clear for the world right now. Brothers and sisters, we are at a time that Imam Sajjad lived in Medina. He could not even talk about issues. Right now, we live in a time where we could broadcast this message throughout the entire world if we know how. We can help people become followers of the correct path of Islam. And many times in history we weren't allowed, people had to do taqiyya, they had to preserve their lives. But we have this ability through knowledge around where we live to spread and to show that Imam Zayn al-Abidin, the imams, are the correct successors of the Prophet. And once they're the correct successors, it's not just that they're the correct successors, then we get our deen and knowledge from them. Then there are our imams. We learn from them. We get our laws from them. We get our beliefs from them. So therefore, we are at an unprecedented time in history, and hopefully, as you see that we could use these tools that we have if we gather together, and especially us that we are pioneers in spreading the message of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam in this country, that we can do such a service to Ahlul Bayt. We can do ihya of their affairs. We can give life to their affairs, and as we have Rahimallah, you want the imams to say, Rahimallah, may Allah bless this person. All of us, we will be asked in the hereafter. And all of us in the hereafter, we will wish that we did something to spread the name of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam where we were. Maybe in the future, and this is not maybe actually, it's a promise that Allah does in the Quran, that this entire world will be under the flag of Imam Mahdi. It's a promise. It will happen. And one day they'll say, oh, there are some brothers in this part of the world. They were the first ones to spread the name of Ahlul Bayt, of Prophet Muhammad, Ali, Hassan, Fatima, Hassan, Hussein, alayhi salam, Ali, in this world. They were the first ones. May Allah reward them. These centers you see that are now after the Advent, they're huge centers now. The entire world will be followers of Ahlul Bayt. Now they're going to have mega Hussainiyas. They say, oh, these guys, they started it. Don't you want to be part of them? Yes. But we have to help each other, and we have to try to spread and learn the message of Ahlul Bayt. Let's recite salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Another saying I'm going to give from one of the other scholars, Sa'id ibn Musayyib, important jurist. He says, "Ma ra'aytu ahadan afqahu min." Remember, today these are top of the tabi'een, those that followed and were the next category after the companions. They were the top. "Ma ra'aytu ahadan afqahu min." I have not seen anybody more knowledgeable than Ali ibn al-Husayn. ما رأيت قط أفضل من علي ibn al-Husayn وما رأيت قط إلا مقدت نفسي. Every time I would see him, even though I am a scholar myself, even though I'm a student of Islam, I would get detested by myself. I would look at myself and see Imam Zayn al-Abidin, and I would get sick of myself. How great must someone be that it would cause that to someone else in another school of thought to see him, if this is what a scholar is, if this, we believe him as an imam, this is what a scholar is, this is what a leader in society is, then what about me? That is the ability the imams had when you look in history, that they did this, that there is no comparison to them ever. Nobody can be compared to them. Even at a young age, when imamat was given to them, and ask, like Imam Jawad, ask questions of knowledge. Nobody would ever win them in debates and arguments. Nobody would win them in a contest of knowledge. And this for us is a great source of honor to have this recorded in history about Imam Zayn al-Abidin. Imam Zayn al-Abidin lived in a tough time after Karbala. What year is Karbala? Year 61 after Hijri, 61. 3 years under the rule of Yazid. At the same time, you had another person, Abdullah ibn Zubayr, who took control of Mecca and took control of other areas. Another person that was dangerous. Muawiyah ibn Yazid, the son of Yazid, then had about a few months of Khilafat, and then he did not want to follow the path of his father Yazid. Then it became time in history of Marwan and Bani Marwan. Marwan ibn Hakam, many of you maybe heard of his name, was a person who his father, Hakam, was banished from the city of Medina. He was expelled from sources of history. And his progeny, him and himself, his sons, were mal'oon by the Prophet. This is in history. It's not only in our books. He was cursed. I ask you this question. How can it be so that someone that is expelled from Medina, someone that is mal'oon and cursed by the Prophet, becomes the Khalifa of the Muslimin? The Khalifa of the Muslimin. Imagine what type of torture this is for those that had knowledge, to see Zayn al-Abidin, the true Imam, in Medina, and in Sham to see the Bani Marwan. Right. At that time, they say there's a story that the Byzantine emperor wrote a letter to Marwan, and he even knew that his father was expelled. And so it's not only a question from us, even the Christians, from the emperor of the Byzantines. He was wondering, wait, wasn't he expelled? So he writes a letter to him and says 100,000 soldiers are coming your way to Marwan. And there is no more camel that you can run away from. That camel is mentioned is eaten. There's no more camel that your father ran away with a camel from Medina to Ta'if. There's no more camel. And they're headed your way. So wondering what answer to give. If they give the wrong answer, then there will be an invasion of the Muslim. And true, Imam Sajjad alayhi salam did not approve, obviously, of Marwan and Bani Marwan. But the Imams had this duty to protect Islam. So they come to him, approach him, and Imam Zayn al-Abidin, with such beauty, mentions the fact that all of these things are in God's hands. All of these things are in Lawh al-Mahfuz, the preserved tablet, all of these things. Who will die, he mentions in the letter. Who will live? Who will be born? Who will be honored? Who will be humiliated? Maybe you, Byzantine emperor, you will come and it's God's will. It's in Lawh al-Mahfuz. Maybe it's written for you that you will be humiliated. You don't know. So therefore, he says, we ask God to protect us from your evil. Reading such a letter, the emperor of Rome, from Imam Sajjad in books of history, says, Ma kharaja hada illa min kalam al-nabuwwah. These are books of history that are obviously translated in Arabic. Ma kharaja hada illa min kalam al-nabuwwah. This speech has not come out except from the speech of prophets. Not that Imam Zayn al-Abidin is a prophet, but he is from the Warath al-Anbiya, the inheritor of the prophets and their knowledge. The knowledge that Imam Zayn al-Abidin has is the knowledge of prophets. And therefore he sees that this is the knowledge, this is, the truth. So therefore he does not attack. When you look at other khulafa, so you see during the time of Marwan ibn al-Hakam, you see during the time of Abdul Malik ibn Marwan, people that were very dangerous. We have hadith that the enemies of Ahlul Bayt, they ruled with the sword. But we Ahlul Bayt rule, or our walayat is with rifq, with companionship. Imam Ali alayhi salam never came with a sword to force people to make them the Zahiri Khalifa of the time. They came towards him after Uthman was murdered and they almost squished people inside. They came to him because the Imams want to make sure that people want the rule of Islam. When the Prophet of Islam teaches Islam, yes, he has that duty to teach, to make sure the message is spread. But the Imam is like the Kaaba. The example of the Imam is like the Kaaba. People have to come towards the Kaaba. The Kaaba does not come to people by force. When someone is ready, and you see during this time the same way, when people are prepared, when they want and they say, we don't want any other type of government, we don't want any type of rule except for the Mahdi, the son of Fatima, and we're prepared, willing to submit to him, willing to fulfill his and help him in his mission, then the Imam, inshallah, will come. So people have to want it. But you see, the rule of the Umayyads was with the sword. It's an interesting story about Walid ibn Abdul Malik. So Marwan, and then you see from the Bani Marwan, they seized power from Syria of the Muslims. Walid ibn Abdul Malik was actually not a very bright person. Maybe, today you would say someone that was failing all his classes all the time. He didn't have, he really didn't want to study. He would like, his father was a king, so it was a Khalifa, so he didn't want to study. His father wants to pass the Khilafah to him. What is he going to do? You have a son that doesn't even know ilmun nahu, doesn't even have the science of grammar. He doesn't even know how to speak correctly. In the courtyard of the king, of the ruler, you have to be able to speak with people with correct grammar. So he's wondering, how am I going to make my son, and also in books of history they say he had another problem, Walid. was that he always had a runny nose. How are you going to have a king that's always, his nose is going to be dripping, and he doesn't even know how to speak Arabic correctly? What are you going to do? So they gave him a crash course, they say, with all the famous grammarians to come to teach him. And after 6 months of teaching, they say that in books of history, that he's worse than how he started out. He didn't learn anything. This is the sadness. We laugh right now. But you're talking about Khilafat, the successors of the Prophet of Islam. We said from who? The Marwan and the children, Ben and Marwan. People that were mal'oon, cursed, and people that were completely not qualified. So his father decided still, even with his speaking disadvantage in speaking, his knowledge and his runny nose, he said that I want him to be the Khalifa. So he was smart. He says, do this. When I die, do not cry over me at all. Do not show any emotion. Do not cry over me. And do not even talk at all. I don't even want you to talk. Just keep your hand by your sword. That's it. And you will rule. Meaning that whoever opposes you, behead him, kill him. Just rule by the sword. That's it. You don't need grammar. You don't need, to see someone with allergies, a doctor that deals with allergies or something. You can rule by being quiet and keeping your hand by your sword. So this, my brothers, my sisters, this is the time period of Imam Zayn al-Abidin. A time period that was ruled by the sword. Time period that was ruled with many people in different cities. Even I heard in Medina where majalis of alcohol and drink was prevalent. And you have Imam Zayn al-Abidin worshipping Allah. 1,000 units of salat, it is recorded that he did, day and night. 1,000 units. Some people ask, is it possible to do 1,000? We do a few units in Laylatul Qadr and we have back problems, knee problems. Allama Amini wanted to make sure this is true because he loved Ali ibn Abi Talib so much that he recited one night, one time period, 1,000 units of salah. He says, I can do this, therefore I'm sure Ali alayhi salam did. Imam Zayn al-Abidin worshipped Allah so much that in tradition it says Imam Baqir alayhi salam came to him and cried. Another infallible cried because he worshipped God so much his forehead was calloused, his nose was calloused, his feet were swollen. And he is wondering, what is my father doing? How much can someone worship? And Imam Zayn al-Abidin, his humbleness, that this is nothing compared to the worship of Ali. Who has the strength of Ali ibn Abi Talib? This is a reality. This is a good comparison about the dhulm that happened. And when you hear these stories, you just want to shed tears. Many of our scholars that wrote books of the lives of the Imams, they did it with tears in their eyes. Because this is what befell Islam, brothers and sisters. Besides, after Karbala, what happened with Yazid? The Umayyads and the rule of Marwan and Banu Marwan, and Imam Zayn al-Abidin in Medina, teaching people and being able to serve people. Not that he didn't want to serve people, but because that was his obligation, was that he was going to, through dua, spread Islam, and alhamdulillah, the numbers became much greater. In these few last moments, because we are running out of time, I want to talk about this important, this is the title of tonight's speech, is how to change the way we look at things through dua and supplication. How can we change our inclinations and what we desire from dua? Brother, sister, man's movement comes from inclination. When you like something, it doesn't matter how tired you are, you will do it. If I tell you there's a brand new car waiting for you and you have to take, I don't know, drive day and night, it's in this other city, the car that you love, You won't say, oh, I just came back from work today. You say, let's go. Well, let's go. You find one of your friends. Let's go right now, for example. This is how we are. We have different inclinations, and this is what our heart is inclined to. Or a home, for example. Right now, there's a home that's on sale. It's a brand new home with all the options you want, with the vacuum that you just plug in, or whatever, in the best part of the city that you like. Let's go and check it out. It's at a good price. You're not going to say, oh, I'm tired. I just came. Tomorrow's another work day. You're going to go. But why is it when it comes to dua and prayer and knowledge, we're not that enthusiastic? I want everyone tonight to engage in analysis of themselves, of where their heart is. How come when we look in culture today that a Muslim, even a Shia Muslim, and a non-Muslim, basically their inclinations are almost the same. Their lifestyle is about the same. The importance that they give to the world and work is the same. And when they have a conversation, they match together. They'll talk about movies, TV shows. They'll talk about culture, what's going on, business. Exactly, they'll match together. But when it comes to, for example, someone that seek knowledge during their life and worship, they'll say, I can't, relate with them as well. Because it's our inclinations. Our inclination, our heart is not there. How can we change this? How can we change what we desire? Do you guys accept this? Do you agree with me that what we desire is not worship, is not knowledge? Can we be honest tonight, at least to myself? That, again, I gave you examples. If I told you this car, if I told you, one of the scholars in the Maraj al-Taqlid actually I'm giving a minbar to myself, but he wanted to make sure that his son, it was hard for him to wake up and worship God during the night. So he said he took his son one night in Najaf and showed him people that were working at 4 or 5, at 3 at night. They were selling things or begging or whatever. He says, look, they are coming here for a sustenance that's not even promised. There's just a chance they'll get sustenance. It's 3, 4 at night in this cold or whatever. They're coming here at darkness to do business or to beg or to get money. But we are not willing to get something that is guaranteed to wake up at that time, for example. There's a chance when someone wakes up that their sustenance, they'll get that, they'll be better, but there's no guarantee. But our worship is guaranteed by God. Our acts of worship is guaranteed. So what can we do that our inclinations change? And it's very hard, but it is possible. One of the ways is by reading dua a lot, reciting dua a lot. Because when you read dua, your inclinations and what you want and are asking for, at least what you're learning to ask for, is what the infallible wanted. Is what Imam Zayn al-Abidin in Sahif al-Sajjadiyya wanted. What Ali ibn Abi Talib wants in Du'a al-Kumayn. You might not want it as much, but you are learning that it is important. You're asking so much so that you become. It's kind of like that verse in the Quran that we have, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. Only you do we worship, but only you do we ask for. Who here only worships God? Who here really only asks from God? Who here, if you raise your hands, we'll give you a prize, inshallah. But it'll be riyah, I guess. It'll be showing off. You say it so much in salat, so much so you learn. It's a statement, it's a dua. It's a statement that I can become like this. And the same way our other du'as, our ad'iyah, are training us that our inclinations should be the same way. And what do you think we do du'a for mostly? Yes, it's all inclusive. It includes dunya, it includes akhirat, but mainly it's about that relationship with God. You're learning that relationship with God, knowing you, worshiping you, is the most important thing. And the most amount of dua is about me as the sinner, me as the slave, and God as the forgiver, God as the gracious, God as the capable, all-knowing, all-powerful. That's what dua is. So you're learning that most important thing in du'as is to be with God in this world, and obviously, and to see the benefits and His grace in the hereafter. So because we ran out of time, but this is a topic for us to think about, and I want you next time you read dua, next time you read a supplication, to think of how that dua is teaching you things. Not only are we just saying it's teaching you what to ask for, teaching you what to desire. Let's see if I can give you one line, from the du'as of Imam Zain al-Abidin. If you give me a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajma'in. Actually, one of the famous du'as is Du'a Abu Hamza. Anybody here heard it? Obviously, most people heard it. Du'a Abu Hamza. The narrator, Abu Hamza Thamali. And what part of the du'a you can remember this? The last line of it. Probably in Shahr Ramadan, if you read it the most time or most tired or about to sleep, because it's probably the closest to Fajr time. It's actually, maybe it's the parts we don't pay attention. But this is one way that Imam Zain al-Abidin teaches us how to change our inclinations. Allahumma inni as'aluka imanan tubashiru bihi qalbi. Oh Allah, I pray you for faith that covers my heart. I pray for a heart that maybe here tubashir, it says covers, maybe it can make happy my heart. I'm praying for iman that covers me entirely. I want iman. So we learned from this one sentence, I'm going to read the other lines. One of the most important things to dua for iman. Can you pray for faith? How many times did we really pray for iman, for faith? Because don't we believe faith has degrees? And I'm asking God, I want that full level, that my entire heart is filled with iman. And if my heart is filled with faith, وَيَقِينًا صَادِقًا, it brings me that certainty, حَتَّى أَعْلَمَ أَنَّهُ لَنْ يُصِيبَنِي إِلَّا مَا كَتَبْتَ لِي, so that I have yaqeen. Give me iman, yaqeen, iman that gives me certainty, and I believe nothing will inflict me save that which you already have known. Nothing else can inflict me, and I have yaqeen that nobody can injure me except what is written for me. So imagine I'm making dua to have iman, faith, and to have yaqeen, certainty, and that has this characteristic that I believe everything that happens, Allah comes from Him. So I won't fear anything. Therefore, I will not fear anything. I won't fear snakes, scorpions, sharks, whatever, say for example, anything that I'll be like another, say, Malik Ashtar, completely courageous, because I believe nothing will inflict me unless Allah wants. So do you see that He's training us to desire things that are way above us? Maybe I won't have yaqeen, but I'm learning that this is what I should desire. And once I say, I want this, then I'll ask the next question will be this, then how do I get it? Well, the first step is you ask from God, but know that this should be your desire. This should be your want, to have true iman, to have that iman that one of the fruits of it, it causes you to be fearless. You never be afraid, because the awliya of God, law khawfun alayhim. They never have huzn, they never have grief, they never have fear. How many, most Americans, it says that 52% are afraid when they leave the house. They have fear, they have anxiety, stress. Something is going to happen to them. Especially the news we have today, that every time is trying to scare you, so you watch it. Now this disease came, now this war is coming, now this drought is coming, now this economy is going to collapse. Every day you think it's over. I mean, if you read it and you see it's over, khalas, that's it. I'm dead. I'm done for. But if you have that, you pray for that iman, that you truly believe in, it brings you that conviction that nothing else can inflict me except what Allah has written for me. Then you will become courageous like Imam Hussein alayhi salam. 1 verses 30,000. We can dim the lights, inshallah. 1 verses 30,000 people at the end. Some people said, I didn't know this, that Hussein ibn Ali is Thursday night, the night of Imam Hussein. We remember Imam Sajjad. I didn't know this, that at one time, do not be afraid, at one time, 1 versus 30,000 people, that say the Shuhada. Yes, there were 72, and others joined when they heard the du'as of Imam Hussein the night of Ashura. They say around 20, 30 people joined the army of Imam Hussein because of the worship of Imam Hussein they heard, like bees making dua. But after they were all martyred on the day of Ashura, we may be sacrificed for Sayyid Shuhada. That time where he comes to say goodbye to Lady Zainab alayhi salam, that final time. And as it mentions, Mahlan yabna Zakhra, walk slowly. And that last time he would come to see his toddler girls, Lady Ruqayya. That time, Sayyid Shuhada, fearless, 1 versus 30,000, and went to an ocean of people, ocean of swords, arrows, and enemies. Brothers and sisters, this is the result of Iman and faith, that it brings yaqeen, that nothing can inflict you except for Allah, and then you believe that whatever Allah brings for me is khair for me. That caused Imam Sajjad to speak in front of Yazid, to destroy Yazid with his speech. That caused Lady Zainab, these were asir, they were captured by Yazid and his army. They were captives. But actually it was reversed. Now Yazid has become a captive of Imam Sajjad. Yazid has become a captive of the sermon of Lady Zainab. May we be sacrificed for you, Imam Sajjad. May we sacrifice for you, Lady Zainab. This responsibility that you had, that you're in front of the courtyard in Sham, you're handcuffed, you are chained, you're riding animals during the daytime, and the family of Imam Hussein paraded around like slaves in Sham. But then when Imam Zainul Abidin, he sees the head of Abi Abdullah, the head of Imam Hussein on a plate in front of Yazid. It made him cry so much that Imam Zainul Abidin became one of the Bakka'in, one of those that cried the most. They would ask him, why do you cry so much? Because of what he saw. He said, in front of me, they were martyred, the Shuhada of Karbala were martyred. But Yaqub, he lost one son. He lost Yusuf. 1 out of 12 he lost. He cried until he became blind. But in front of me, I saw, for example, the head of Imam Hussein. In front of me, saw them take a stick and play with the lips of the Imam of the age at that time, Imam Hussein alayhi salam. I saw them drink alcohol and pour that alcohol on the head of Hussein ibn Ali. This is what befell Islam. Inna lillah, inna ilayhi rajiun. Ya Allah, we ask you, because of the honor of Imam Zainul Abidin, to give us worship that is similar like his. Give us ma'rifat and understanding that is similar like his. To give us tears like how he cried for Imam Hussein. To give us that ability to cry for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. To never take away our tears for Imam Hussein. Never take away our love of Imam Hussein. Never take away from us walayat of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. And to change our inclinations from dua. Allow us to learn from dua, so that what we truly desire in this world is similar to what Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam wanted from God. Please, for the advent of the Imam of the age, please recite salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Please, there's any questions, I will take them. If there's any notes or any comments that you have. and I will be available here. We also have hours for consultation. You can look it through the email if you feel like maybe you want to talk about something, then you can reserve a time online. Are there any questions that we have? Okay, that's okay. Well, Brother Reza is going to continue, inshallah. From Matam for Imam Sajjad, Matam al-Hussein.
Brothers, if you can stand and come forward just a few minutes. The promise is revoked, it's time to leave here. The promise is revoked, it's time to leave here. The promise is revoked, it's time to leave here. The desert sand is soaked, your father's blood here. The chains around your neck are covered in tears. O Imam Sajjad, O Imam Sajjad, O Imam Sajjad, O Imam Sajjad. You saw your father killed, the just descendant, alone and without help, in thirst and torment. It's ringing in your head, the screams in his tent. O Imam Sajjad, O Imam Sajjad, O Imam Sajjad, O Imam Sajjad. You hear your nieces cry, the prophet's daughters. You hear your nieces cry, the prophet's daughters. You gaze upon the sky, I want my father. They have nobody left, but now there's water. O Imam Sajjad, O Imam Sajjad, O Imam Sajjad, O Imam Sajjad. The prisoners Kufa bound, so frail but walking, the bodies on the ground, a mother weeping, and nowhere can be found those blood-stained earrings. O Imam Sajjad, O Imam Sajjad, O Imam Sajjad. The sun and moon and stars that bowed to Yusuf, the sun and moon and stars that bowed to Yusuf, upon that day went dark, there's no Hussein left, and you are their Imam in chains and captive. O Imam Sajjad, O Imam Sajjad, O Imam Sajjad, O Imam Sajjad. La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadan Rasulullah. لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمدا رسول الله عليا ولي الله عليا ولي الله عليا ولي الله نادى علي يا مظهر العجائب نادى علي يا مظهر العجائب تجده عونا لك في النواهب كل هم وغم سينجلي كل هم وغم سينجلي بعظمتك بعظمتك بنبوتك بنبوتك بولايتك يا علي يا علي يا علي بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقاعدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين صلوات